Tonight, debate drama.
If there's a debate,
Donald Trump turns a yes into a maybe, while the Harris camp
Why not debate her?
we'll wait.
calls Trump chicken. Plus, change of tune.
I'm going to work to get him elected.
RFK goes from calling Trump a buffoon to betting on him to unify the country. Also, a new and startling look at how the Trump White House worked from a top general who lived through it. Live at the table, Ashley Allison, Scott Jennings, Stuart Stevens, and Katie Frost. Welcome to a special edition of Newsnight, State of the Race. Good evening, everyone. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's, as always, get right to what America is talking about, the debate stage, and whether or not Donald Trump will actually be on it. The Republican nominee has once again given you at home reason to doubt whether he's going to show up to work on September 10th. And here's what he's saying.
Thinking about it, we're thinking about it. They also want to change the rules. You know, the deal was we keep the same rules. Now all of a sudden they want to make a change in the rules because she can't answer questions.
Here we go again. We're back here at the table. Trump now calling into question whether he's going to be there. And the Harris campaign, they're already trolling him. Just listen to this ad that they put out as a result of all of that.
Why not debate her?
We'll wait. But because they already know everything. They say, oh, Trump's, not doing the debate. That's the same thing they'll say now. I mean, right now I say, why should I do a debate? I'm leading in the polls. And everybody knows her, everybody knows me.
He doesn't want to debate her, Scott.
Well, first of all, as the only bona fide chicken farmer at this table,
That's why I came to you
I am
first.
offended. I am offended by this. He does want to debate her. He's going to debate her. In fact, he wanted to do like 3 debates, and she agreed to this one. And he agreed to the rules against Biden. Now she wants to change the rules, even though these were the rules they used against Biden.
Should he be happy that the rules would be that he can say whatever he wants? Like, I mean, if he really wants to debate her, that would be what he would want.
I don't know. They're going to debate. He needs to debate because he's going to have to hold her to account for her record as vice president, her positions when she ran for president, her record in the Senate, because no one else is going to help him. And the idea that they're calling him chicken when she won't answer a single question, a hard question from a journalist right now, is a little rich to me. So, but I think they'll do it, and I think they both have reason to need to show up. They both have something to prove.
I mean, I think he's just getting a taste of his own medicine. For the last 8 years or so, Donald Trump has mocked, baited, said nasty things, even most recently as this week. And the Harris campaign is just poking at him, poking the bear and seeing what Donald Trump will show up. Will he debate I mean, I know you feel confident about this. The American people deserve a debate, but I am not sure. Look, why not let the mic stay on? Do you think your candidate can remain disciplined enough? The last debate definitely went in Trump's favor in the immediate. Joe Biden had a terrible performance, which is why now Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket. I don't think he's going to have another hit like that. And so that's why he's hedging his bets right now.
Yeah, I mean, Harris, look, she doesn't even really have to do anything here because Trump is the one who keeps kind of hemming and hawing about this, giving her the upper hand. And to Scott's point, I mean, the storyline could be about how she hasn't done an interview. We're 5 days away from the end of the month. It's supposed to happen within those 5 days. It hasn't yet, but instead Trump is putting on the table that he's, I don't know, scared, that he doesn't want to do it, that he only wants to do it under circumstances that are favorable to him.
We know a lot of times this is just posturing. We have different people, different campaigns. They're playing the expectations game. They're just trying to have an angle for what they want. I fully agree with Scott here. We're going to see a debate. There's no question about that. The stakes are, of course, very high. The last time President Trump walked onto the debate stage, it was arguably the most consequential presidential debate we've seen, maybe even more so than Nixon versus Kennedy back in 1960. So I'm fully confident there will be a debate, and it's going to be must-see TV.
The funny thing about this debate about debate rules is if you don't adhere to the rules, nothing happens. nobody ever comes out and goes, "Wait,
There are no penalty boxes.
This thing is over now. You just broke the thing." So, you know, I mean, I've been through this a million times. You
Which
have all
usually,
these
I mean,
things-
works in Trump's favor because he kind of rolls through these rules, and then it all just ends up with him
one
talking
thing about
more
Trump
than
is
everybody else.
you can prepare for any scenario. And Harris is going to be very prepared. She's going to be very calm. She's going to prosecute him. And it's going to be a very clear debate for her. I think when you go into debates, it's really important to have very specific goals. You want to accomplish, you know, maybe 3 things at most, maybe 4. And that could be anything from prove that you're likable to unveiling new policy to showing that you're tough on foreign policy or something. Yeah, Harris is a very focused person. This will be a comfortable environment for her. So I think they're having a ball of it.
Yeah,
at the
she wants
Harris
to
campaign.
she wants to recreate all of these moments of Trump on the debate stage.
Look, it's just not true, and so please
Oh,
go
you didn't
to
delete him?
Allow her to respond,
were
please.
personal emails, not
Oh,
official.
33,000? Yeah,
Not
right.
well. We turned over 35,000. So
Oh, yeah.
it was.
What about the other 15,000?
Please allow her to respond. She didn't talk while you talked.
Yes, that's true. I didn't.
Because you
I
have
didn't
nothing
in
to
the
say.
first.
Excuse me,
opportunity,
I got
but I-
rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That
big
is not a
chunk of
comprehensive plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
The
The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we
to-
will
Mr.
protect people.
President-
You
The
wanna
question
put a lot
is-
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is-
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who is
shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so-
list?
Gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
He's
ended-
not going to give a list.
Look, he's got one mission at this thing.
It's
one
not
mission only.
that.
Well, no, the first debate against Biden was a disaster. He actually got better in the second when they didn't have the middle one. The last one they did, he was somewhat better, but it was too late at that point. This one, he's got one mission. He cannot let her get away with running as something other than the incumbent. She is Joe Biden's vice president. The entire mission of this debate is to ask the American people a simple question. If you are mad about what is going on in this country, and you're mad about inflation, and you're mad about the border, how could you possibly keep the same administration in place that you think has broken it? Now, it's boring because you need to do that for 90 straight minutes, and sometimes he gets bored with the same thing for 90 straight minutes. But if
90
he achieves
seconds.
that, but that's the mission, right? That's what he's got to do.
Here's the thing. I think that everyone is saying, oh, we want the vice president to do an interview. Oh, there's a lot of demands on Kamala Harris right now in terms of policy. And I think she has laid out the policy. In the debate. In the debate, Kamala Harris has the opportunity to draw the contrast. It's not like Donald Trump has rolled out a miles length of policy other than we don't want this, we hate this, we don't like this, we want to take this back, we want to take this away from the American folk. He's not telling you how he's going to bring inflation down. He's not telling you if we had another global pandemic, how he would lead better. He's not saying why he doesn't have his current former vice president on the stage in a couple of weeks because he charged the insurrection. Kamala Harris has a great opportunity to draw the contrast. And while so many people are making demands on her, she can say, what are the demands you have of him? And when they go toe to toe, I think the American people will align with her.
You know, I think the way Trump is going into this mentally is a disaster for him. And I think his campaign knows it. He's going to he doesn't respect the vice president. And that's going to come across.
Yeah, he called her dumb several times today.
Yeah, he has a problem with women. He has a real problem with black women in power. And this is going to come across. I think this is going to be a very bad night for Trump. I don't think it's going to be about policy or anything. I think it's just going to be about what vibe you get from these two
the
people.
demeanor.
And I just, you can't coach this guy. He's like an athlete who's uncoachable.
Well, he said, okay, I got to play this for you, Stuart, because this is what he told reporters today.
I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate. You know, you can go in and you can have all sorts of sessions. I watched Mitt Romney go in and he worked so hard. 4 weeks he locked himself into a log cabin and then he developed lockjaw. He couldn't speak. You have to be real.
Well, wait, the first debate we were good.
Scott and I were there. Scott and I were at those.
We were good.
Scott and I were at those debates. They were actually kind of
The
fun.
lockjaw part was the part I was like, wait, what?
It's just the guy. It's, you know, there's always this need to try to make sense of what Trump is saying, like it may be part of some strategy. Otherwise, he just kind of comes across as a blithering idiot, when the truth is he's just sort of a blithering idiot. And he says this stuff, it has no meaning, it has no focus to it. And he's an angry guy. He thought he had won. And I've seen this, Scott, you've seen it too in campaigns. When a candidate thinks they've won and something happens and that gets taken away, that is a really rough emotional moment. And it takes a lot of maturity to deal with that, if you can.
And he is living through that very publicly right now, where he felt that week. I mean, we were right on the set with each other, Scott. You felt that the campaign was locked up.
Oh, we were on our way to a landslide. I mean, the
different.
Republicans were going to have a landslide. Any Democrat will tell you that's what they were mentally preparing for. And so everybody believed that. He believed it. By the way, he's still also, I think, living through...
I don't agree with that, but anyway.
You don't think we were going to have a landslide against Biden?
No, I think that Trump...
Then why don't they still have him, Stuart?
Because he had a terrible debate, and he's too old to be president.
Here's the test of the leadership.
But look, I think Trump has a ceiling. He's never broken 47%. He won with 46.2%. We lost with Romney when Romney got 47.2%. And he lost by 7 million votes. I just don't see where he's getting new customers.
Here's the thing about leaders, is that you have to be able to be nimble and adjust. He can't even adjust to a different opponent. He thought it was going to be Joe Biden. It's not Joe Biden. And he can't adjust to Kamala Harris, and we want him to have the nuclear codes. Like, either you're a leader or you're up to it or you're not. No,
you're acting like this is a common occurrence for parties to switch out their nominees in the summer. I mean, this is a totally unheard of, audacious thing the Democrats
So was
have done.
COVID. But you know what? You got to learn how to roll with the punches if you want to be the leader of the free world. If you can't handle a change of candidate, I surely don't want you handling my country.
What do they think in Georgia? I think we're winning. I think he's doing fine in Georgia. And I think people are still okay with his presidency versus what they're getting out of Biden, are they not?
Well, and that's the thing. It's a very unique opportunity voters have. Normally when we have an election cycle, you have to look at what the candidate is saying and try to guess the impact their policies will have on your life. But now voters can go, okay, was my life better under President Trump when I could get $2 gas at the pump? Or is it better now? And in Georgia, where I'm from, we're seeing inflation is sky high. It is really hurting people. Their everyday lives are being impacted in a negative way by the Biden-Harris administration, and that's what they're going to be voting on when they go to the polls.
This is the argument he's got. This is what he's got to stick with. I mean, this is like when I was in, we had this. Well, they're in, you have
and
that.
And then a global pandemic happened. I botched the handling of it for a year. I kept...
How did he botch it?
Bleach in arms.
Did he or did he not leave?
Scott, you're not going to defend.
I'm asking.
Scott, you don't have to do this.
Did he not leave Joe Biden the vaccine, which Kamala Harris claims she wouldn't take as long as Donald Trump developed it?
He told us to put bleach in arms. He told us that it wasn't real. He told us Fauci was a fraud. He told us not to wear a mask.
That's debatable now.
I mean, he told us if Donald Trump would have been the president longer, we would have probably had more than, sadly, 1 million people lose lives. He botched that.
Don't you think, I mean, I think this is pretty self-evident, Trump's handling of COVID absolutely hurt him in the 2020 election.
Oh, I think that COVID upended him in the election. I think in retrospect, people are pretty unhappy about what we were told at the time and what we found out later.
Not just COVID, but about how he led in that moment. Because COVID was a lot of things, and, maybe people were upset with their Democratic governors or whatever. But Donald Trump, how he handled it specifically, was one of the things that made people uneasy.
I think it upended his campaign. I also think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't handle it very well. I mean, remember, more people died of COVID after they got in than when Trump was in. And he left them behind the medicine. He left them behind the medicine.
You can't really compare these two.
Why?
Because
the American people are. They're doing it right now.
Because Trump was out there as somebody who just was an embarrassment to the country. He was somebody who denied that this was happening. There literally was a COVID playbook that the previous administration, a pandemic playbook, he ignored it. I mean, I think maybe there's some ways you can defend Trump, but the hill to die on COVID,
I don't even be honest that he had it. He went on a debate stage and debated and could potentially put everybody else in harm's way because he's selfish. He didn't even acknowledge. He knew he had it. He didn't tell his team, or maybe he's told his team. That's not what you want in a leader. And I do think Americans.
But when was the last time we had a global pandemic? Was the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 when Woodrow Wilson was president. So to give you an idea of how long ago it was, also at the end of his presidency, Woodrow Wilson was in terrible health and wasn't able to actually govern. So it was a long time ago. It's not like this is every president has to manage a pandemic.
You gotta be ready when it comes. COVID was one of the major, downstream effects of how Trump led in that moment. And you could argue that the reason there were so many deaths after Trump left office was because you could almost predict the death toll based on whether you were in a red state or in a blue state, which is just
you could predict.
So you're saying that Trump's responsible for everything he did and for the Biden
I'm just saying that making public health about politics was a mistake.
That's right.
Everyone, stick around
I
for
agree.
us.
Asking Randy Weingarten.
Coming up next, is this what unity looks like? RFK and Tulsi Gabbard line up behind Donald Trump, papering over long histories of saying not so nice things about the Republican nominee. Plus, a Trump insider tells all. H.R. McMaster has pulled back the curtain on what he saw inside of that Trump White House. This is Newsnight, State of the Race. Today, another former Democrat endorsed a former Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard showed up on the stage with Donald Trump to lend him her support. But is that worth anything? And joining us in our fifth seat, CNN contributor Carrie Champion. This is interesting because RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, from as far as I can tell, this is like the convention of conspiracy theorists in all these different areas. But the Trump campaign seems convinced that they have come up with this rainbow coalition on the right, if you will.
They've come up with a coalition of people that you can't really understand, like how they get through TSA. I mean, none of these people you don't want to sit next to on a plane. You were saying this about RFK Jr. I mean, he's this nut. And sad case. Endorsements really don't matter in politics, but this kind of thing, I think, reinforces the worst images of Trump. The conspiratorial stuff, it's not going to help him at all.
Okay, so it's not me that's saying that. This is Stephen Miller. This is what he says about the Trump coalition. Trump has built a new coalition that's bigger than the GOP. Conservatives, independents, FDR and Kennedy Democrats, old school liberals, blue collar populists, anti-war activists, foreign policy realists, economic nationalists. Everyone but the corrupt ruling class. Are all those people in your Republican Party?
Well, they have built a campaign of people who deeply distrust institutions, government, and sort of the Washington elites. I mean, that is the ethos of this campaign. RFK fits into that. Tulsi Gabbard fits into that. I'm not sure how much endorsements matter. I will say this. Because his name is Kennedy, he will draw a crowd. I mean, you got to remember, Trump's ticket to victory.
That's the problem.
But
and then he's going to speak.
Depends on the crowd, doesn't it? I mean, his ticket to victory are these low propensity male, working class male vote, the Joe Rogan audience, and sneer at them at your own peril, because if they get excited about RFK or they think it's if he says Trump's okay, we're going to turn out and vote. That's how Trump changes the composition of the electorate, through that kind of voter. So. You can make fun of them, and they do say strange things, but there's a coalition of people that are into it.
It's really a question of, like, let's put aside, yes, the numbers are what they are, but just on the substance of it. I mean, the kinds of things RFK Jr. has said, the kinds of things Tulsi Gabbard has said. Here's a tweet from March 2022. There are 25 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens to the U.S. world. We must take action now. This is, I mean, there's nothing behind this stuff.
This is Putin's ticket. I mean, Scott, did you ever think that in the Republican Party we worked in, that you would have a candidate supported by Putin, was helped to get elected by Putin, who now is like dining out on RFK Jr., who just gets up there and says all these Russian talking points. Yeah. And now Tulsi Gabbard, who is clearly, I mean, she's probably not a Russian agent, but she's a useful idiot at best. It's really extraordinary, and it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching Gabbard on, I think maybe right after the Biden-Trump debate, and she was on Bill Maher, and Bill Maher asked her very specifically, okay, that's not the question I'm asking you. What is the problem with the party. And she kept saying that I can't give into a Harris ticket because we are so close. This administration has us so close to a nuclear war where children's skin will be falling off. And he's like, I don't need you to describe all that. I need you to give me a real understanding of why you are actually saying you're endorsing Trump or you are for Trump. And she couldn't answer the question. And I think it's really interesting, especially coming off the DNC, Scott, where you have Republicans endorsing Kamala Harris, but going up there and saying, look, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not an independent, I'm American. And these are the issues. We have a cult personality running our entire party, and we can't do that. I have to do the hard things. And so I feel like what we're looking at in real time is that when you ask someone to describe what are the real issues, they're going to attack Kamala Harris, whether or not they think she knows about foreign policy. I understand that. But Gabbard seems like she's being really petty. It also seems like she's looking for a position. She's looking for a job. And she's also, to me, if you ask her square on square, what is your main issue? You can't keep telling me we're close to a nuclear war.
Both of them seem scorned.
Yes.
By the Democratic Party.
Yes.
You mentioned the whole thing about Putin. I mean, she was so furious about Hillary Clinton basically calling her a pawn. And RFK Jr. similarly feels rejected by the Democratic Party. Sure. And both of them, to your point, Carrie, I mean, RFK was pretty explicit. He wants to have a role in a Trump White House if Trump is elected.
What is so unusual about that?
People
support campaigns, they want to work in the administration.
It's the shopping.
People should understand that if that's the give and take, then people should just understand that.
I mean, you don't think all these people writing all these checks to Kamala Harris haven't already written down their top 3 ambassadorships?
Okay, but
Come
listen,
on.
this is the thing about RFK. Yes, Gabbard wants a position, but homie was like, I'm openly campaigning to who will answer my phone call.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris was like, no, we don't need that over here. And Donald Trump said, sure, I'll take the call. That's what people, when you talk about folks being upset with institutions and the compromising of integrity, that's what they're talking about. It shouldn't be a quid pro quo. Either stand for what you believe Donald Trump is. But the thing about RFK and Trump is, like, if you actually put their policy positions side by side, they wouldn't agree on anything, particularly on climate.
One thing, they're both against vaccines, all mandatory vaccines. So they're against the polio vaccine.
Right, but
you have candidates against that.
It's not because he believes that Donald Trump is a good leader. It's because RFK wants to be the leader himself. And when his name ID wasn't enough to keep him above 20%, particularly with the flip of Biden and Harris, that's why he now has dropped out of the race, because the only way he can get power is making a deal with Trump.
All right, everyone. Hang tight for a little bit. Coming up next, breaking tonight, 200 former GOP staffers are endorsing Kamala Harris, but should all the other former Trump officials follow suit? Is speaking out enough? In a new op-ed, the Bulwark's Tim Miller argues that the former Trump administration officials, all of them who've criticized their former boss, they need to step forward and go a step further and endorse Kamala Harris for president. Miller highlights statements from Trump campaign secretaries and advisors, everything from calling Trump dangerous and unfit to the most flawed person I've ever met. He goes on to write, on the one hand, you have a woman who just presented herself as a mainstream Democrat who plans to respect and uphold the fundamental American political traditions at home and abroad. On the other hand, you have a candidate who you have acknowledged is the most flawed person you have ever encountered, a danger to the country and an existential threat to our system of government. How in God's name do you justify silence in the face of that choice? Back with my panel. Now, you might disagree with their assessment of Trump, but it's a fair point that if all of these people believe what they say, why won't they say something?
Well, if they feel that strong about President Trump, it also can speak to their lack of confidence in Vice President Harris. They're willing to say all these things about him, but she has not given them enough reason to actually come out and endorse her.
Is that what it says, or does it say that
they're careerist? That's
don't
what it says.
want to go that extra step because something's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this isn't a normal election. All this stuff we talk about, inflation, the economy, that's not what this race is going to be about. It's not what 22 is about. This race is about one thing, Donald Trump, and what he's doing to America. And it's going to be a referendum on Trump. And when you say these things, you have to come out and support Harris. It's a binary choice. One of these two people is going to be president. My old client, Chris Christie, he has to endorse Harris.
But will he? I mean, these are all people we're waiting. I mean,
I don't understand
Kristen
intellectually or
Sununu,
morally how you cannot.
Kristen Sununu in New Hampshire used to be all over the place, making a moral case against Trump. He has endorsed him.
I think Katie's point is the right one. Why would any Republican who believes in any of the old or new tenets of the Republican Party vote for Kamala Harris? She's going to pack the court. Remember, her voting record was as the most liberal senator. Her platform for president was as liberal or to the left of Bernie Sanders. Why would any Republican, how could they possibly reach the conclusion that by voting for this somehow returns us to the conservative way? It makes no sense.
I can answer that. The reason you would vote for it is because all the stuff that we used to say, the character counts, the character is destiny, that you believe in the Constitution, that if you really believe that, and they weren't marketing slogans, there's only one candidate that supports that.
And that's what Jeff Duncan was saying.
like
I agree with that. That's what he was saying. Jeff Duncan was saying that. When he gave his speech, that's what he was saying. He was saying, guess what? I don't necessarily agree with the Democratic Party. I am not a Democrat, but I do know that President Trump, former President Trump, does not believe in the rule of law. So do I vote for someone who doesn't believe in the rule of law, or do I vote for someone who doesn't want the same policies?
We can't talk about packing the court.
Why?
Your former boss, Mitch McConnell, literally stole a No. Come on. Yes, come on.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go for this ride.
So,
Come on.
Scalia dies in February.
Yeah.
We wait months.
Yes.
Mitch McConnell refuses to put up the sitting president's nominee.
So?
And then,
So
that hoping that a Republican would win,
Yes.
and that they could get that appointment, right? So RBG dies. We don't have to wait for the American people to speak, because why? They wanted to pack the court. Why? So that we could overturn Roe.
The Senate confirmed the nominee a week before the election, which was
actually. The election had already started because people
were already
early voting.
Yeah.
So it was during an election.
But I kind of want to go back to the point, though. You're asking, why have they not endorsed her? A lot of these people we're talking about are former elected Republicans. And so many of the positions they ran on and things they campaigned on, you mentioned Jeff Duncan. I'm from Georgia. He was my lieutenant governor. Yep. The things he ran on when he ran for lieutenant governor in 2018, some of them are in direct opposition to the platform.
Correct.
Jeff said something in his speech that actually hit, and by the way, he's our colleague, and I'm not, it's not a personal attack, but he said, he sort of inferred that if you don't vote for Harris, you're not a patriot.
I would agree with that.
And I have to tell you how profoundly poorly that's going to hit a lot of Republican ears. Look, there are plenty of Republican voters who are lukewarm on Trump. Maybe they wish he hadn't run again, whatever. But to be told that your choice is, your patriotism is dependent upon your choice just because you prefer a Republican government.
You prefer someone.
I thought that was a poor argument. I thought that was a poor argument.
You prefer someone who didn't try to overthrow the government.
The Republicans
of the
are saying
United
you're not an American if you vote for Harris.
I've never heard anyone say
I
that.
heard many of them say that.
People were making fun of us because we were women. Yes, people were literally questioning us because we wanted to wave our own flag at the Democratic National Convention, talking about when did they start loving America? From the day I was born. Here's the thing. He's not saying that you're not a patriot if you vote for Donald Trump. He's just saying, this is my interpretation of it. He's saying, I love this country beyond anybody, any one person. And somebody who tried to overthrow our election, somebody who didn't stop for hours, because I'm pretty sure we agree on this, because we've talked about this even on air. When an insurrection was happening at the Capitol, when you support somebody who has done that, that is not patriotic. And then when you have that be your party's nominee, sometimes you got to call a spade a spade.
Because that happened does not mean I or Katie or any other Republican has to give up on every single value that we've ever had, whether it has to do with taxes or the court or any other policy. You're asking Republicans to turn over the government to absolute radical liberals over one day, and I'm not prepared to do it because I believe policy choices I believe they matter to the future of the country.
And what policies are you endorsing if you endorse Kamala Harris?
I'll tell
We
you
still
what you
don't
are
know
endorsing
fully.
if you endorse
Let me finish real
Donald
quick,
Trump.
please. We still fully don't know. Are we going to get the 2019 Kamala Harris, who came out of California and had all these liberal positions, that she wanted to ban fracking, that she supported the Green New Deal, and now we're hearing from advisors and mixed things. Oh, maybe she doesn't, maybe doesn't. Are we going to have 2019 Kamala Harris from California? Or are we going to have a new Kamala Harris who wants to win swing states
Either
and
one
the position
is
is
better.
changing?
Either one is
don't know better than Donald Trump
Listen,
on any given
if you
day.
believe, Scott, let me just,
Listen,
can I just, Scott, just a
All right,
second.
let me let
Give me 1
Stuart
second, okay?
get his point.
I can remember being on the bus with you, with Romney, and this is something that really stuck with me. And one of the aides who worked for you had misspelled something in a press release. And you very nicely, you weren't mean, you said, this is someone running for the presidency of the United States, to sit in the Oval Office. We have to be at that level and treat it with that respect. How do you say that? And then you get Donald Trump, a sexual predator, a criminal, someone who we know is just a horrible human being who doesn't believe in what we believe in rule of law. And how all this policy stuff, they're not going to remember what the tax rate was or what, this is basically, it is a character test, Scott.
It's more than that. It's more than what the tax rate is. Profound policy implications and decisions are coming from the next administration. I firmly believe if the Democrats win, and if they somehow keep control of the Senate, which I don't think is likely but is possible, they will eliminate the filibuster, and they will change this country in a way that we can never recover. That is important to me.
What
Now,
does that look like?
I don't begrudge
Like,
your
Scott.
viewpoint, but you cannot begrudge a Republican for wondering, hey, maybe it's not a great idea for us to drive off the left side of the road so far we can never find our way back.
Can you finish that thought then? Like,
Yeah.
what does that
What does that look like?
What does the
Does it look
country
like Roe versus Wade, the
Right. Does it
equivalent?
look like
Does it look
children
like that?
eating and not being hungry? Does it look like having...
Can I
I
just,
do, but I'm serious.
Let me
I really want to know the answer.
Let me ask another version of that question. I mean, earlier tonight, H.R. McMaster, who used to work for Trump as the national security advisor, he was out. He's got a book out. But the consistent through line of him and pretty much everybody else who's had that job is a concern that Donald Trump himself in the presidency was a national security risk. Those people worked for him, and they believe that. Doesn't that give you pause?
Well, he said he had some good moments and some bad. Look, I don't begrudge him his opinion either. He did. If you read his book and you listen to his interviews, it was. I think this book's being portrayed like it's some.
Well, it's not. If it were just him, it would be one thing. It's him.
You know that Donald Trump is a disgrace.
I don't begrudge anyone their opinion, their political opinion. If he wants to have that, that's fine. Here's what I'm telling you. If you continue to go out and browbeat every Republican in this country and say they're not a patriot or they're a disgrace, they're voting for a disgrace or whatever, it is going to backfire on Harris.
But that's not what the Harris campaign is doing.
What are you doing right now?
If you look at what Tim Walz is saying, he says, these are my neighbors, these are my friends. Yep. He's not out there doing that. And they're attracting a lot of votes.
I heard a lot of that at the convention. That's the implicit argument of the Democrats, is that you have to wave away all of your policy concerns over this issue. And there's Republicans that aren't going to want to do that.
What I heard the vice president saying on that stage was that she would be the president for all Americans. What I didn't hear is Donald Trump say that.
All right, guys. Hold on. We got a lot more to discuss coming up next. Hitting the airwaves, we've got an exclusive preview of a new campaign ad focused on those strict abortion laws in red states. That's coming up next.
Abigail, right?
How do you know?
Were you about 8 weeks pregnant? See, you've been spotting recently. You've had any cramps or nausea?
That's personal.
You've been taking your prenatal vitamins?
Excuse me?
And your navigation is set to a women's health clinic in one of those abortion states.
We have the right to travel.
Not anymore. You, sir, are under arrest for crossing state lines to obtain an abortion for a minor under your care. And you, young lady, well, you're under arrest for evading motherhood.
All right, that was a new Lincoln Project political ad that rolls out tomorrow on both digital and TV platforms. Back with my panel, Scott.
You know what I was wondering?
You know what I will say? I'll just say this about the ad. I mean, it's an example of how this issue is going to be presented to voters.
Well, I'm glad to see we have very serious people putting out very serious advertising. I mean, look, by the way, you make this?
I didn't make it, but I'm with the Lincoln Project, and I think it's going to be a very effective ad.
So when you watch
the problem with the unimaginable is it's difficult to imagine. And what you have here are these laws that are being passed. This actually has happened. I mean, they did criminalize someone going out of state in Ohio. And look, when you get these states that ban abortion, You know, they are going to track all this. When you make something a criminal, if you're a woman and you're using an app to track periods, that could become evidence against you in a trial. That is the world here. And one thing about it is, you know, we only banned abortions in states like Mississippi for poor people. Because everybody I grew up with in Mississippi who had money and something, they wanted to get an abortion, they would get an abortion. Right. And that is still going to happen. And it is absolutely more impactful on those with lower economic strata. And this is what has happened. And the idea that we can just sort of say, well, you know, it's just policy, something that people thought was a constitutional right for almost 2 generations has been taken away. And I think it is about liberty, and it is about the heavy hand of government.
Well, okay, to this point, I mean, obviously the Trump campaign, they're already starting to try to maneuver around this reality on abortion. Here's J.D. Vance talking about what Trump would do when it comes to a national abortion ban.
If such a piece of legislation landed on Donald Trump's desk, would he veto it?
Well, I think it'd be very clear he would not support it. I mean, he said that
veto
explicitly.
It?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not supporting it as the President of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would.
He's already, by the way, getting criticized by the right for saying that.
I mean, I was at the RNC, and there was some discussion about the platform. There were some changes made in that, and just what language were we going to use, and what was going to be the Republican Party's approach on this issue. And it's obvious, I mean, I have to say, watching that ad, it felt like fan fiction. Like, guys, this is, very heightened dramatization, to say the least. But also, this is the only issue that Harris and the Democratic Party really have that they think they can run on. Every single other issue, they're absolutely going to get destroyed on, whether it's the economy, immigration, foreign policy. The latest polling asked people, do you believe our country's going in on the right track or the wrong track? 67% say wrong track, 27% say right track.
You know what's interesting, just to your point about what Republicans think Harris is vulnerable on? They are spending $74 million over the last 30 days on immigration ads attacking her. That's 3 times what they're spending on the economy. I thought the economy
would be the biggest issue.
Would be the big issue.
To their own voters. It's sort of a manifestation of Trump's world. And you saw it in McMaster's book, this competition to flatter Trump. And Trump wants this race to be about immigration. So therefore, if you're working for him, you make ads about immigration. You spend all this money. You're right. You're right.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that point for one moment here, though, because look at what the Harris campaign is also putting out ads about immigration, using images of the wall, which her VP nominee, Governor Walz, says they don't work, but now apparently we want to use those images in our ads. So there's definitely a pivot
we have this extraordinary moment where conservative elements in the United States Congress came together to do a bipartisan bill that really would have secured the border more than it's ever been secured.
Yeah, we've heard people
and
say
Trump
that.
said, don't
do it.
pass
Don't do it, because I want to look
like a hero.
This
has never happened before.
Yeah.
A bill has never not passed the Congress ever?
But
that a presidential candidate went out.
I just want to go back to the fan fiction comment. I think if you talk to women in Idaho or in any of the 30 states that actually now have abortion bans, particularly Texas, it doesn't feel like fan fiction. It doesn't feel like they don't have the government being overly intrusive.
Sure.
And they don't feel like that they don't have bodily autonomy to make decisions. And it's just the beginning, because and I know that the point that J.D. Vance was trying to make about Donald Trump vetoing an abortion bill, well, that's nice to say now, but a week after.
But to your point of fan fiction, he said this, and I think it's great. It's hard to imagine the unimaginable. And I think both parties are doing that. But if you want to talk about fan fiction, listen to Trump at any time talk without anybody fact-checking and him making up anything and you literally weaponizing fear at all times.
It is fan fiction, because no bill banning abortion can or will pass the United States Senate.
It doesn't mean you don't want it to happen.
But the question is, would he veto this if it lands on? That is completely fantastical. But you made a passionate case for abortion. And Donald Trump has the exact same position as Ronald Reagan. I'm pro-life. I believe in the 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and life of the mother. And oh, by the way, I am the strongest supporter in the Republican Party for IVF. It is no different than Reagan. And you helped Republican candidates win on that for your entire career, and now you're offended by it, and I don't understand.
I'll explain it. Give me a chance to explain it to you. Because
Stuart, you get the last word here.
It is the heavy hand of government. It is stuff happening that we never thought would happen. In these states that have banned abortion completely, what it's forcing women to do, 64,000 women have become pregnant by rapists since Dobbs. 64,000.
And Trump believes in the exceptions for rape.
Okay.
Now.
All right, my friends, everyone, stay with me. Your nightcaps are coming up
He's
next.
like, get on your side.
And we are back, and it is time for the news nightcap. You each have 30 seconds, not 60 seconds, to say your piece. Stuart, you're first.
There's been a lot of talk, it's sort of a universal truth, that this election is going to be close. I have a different opinion. I don't think this election is going to be close. I think it'll be close till about October 20th, and then I think it's going to be like Carter versus Reagan, that the bottom is going to start to drop out for Trump. He's not attracting new voters, and he has a limit of 47%. You can't blow him over that with dynamite. And I think this is going to be a race that Democrats are going to win by more than Biden did.
That's a bona fide hot take right there, Katie. Go ahead.
My hot take is that Vice President Harris's message is focus on what I'm going to do on day one as president and completely ignore what I've done for the last 1,314 days as vice president. She's the border czar. Crossings are at an all-time high. She's the president of the National Space Council. We have 2 astronauts stranded in space. She was the last person in the room. Hey, she was the last person in the room on the Afghan withdrawal. And now we have 13.
We have 13.
We have 13. We have 13 Americans are dead. Afghan women are no longer allowed to speak in public under the Taliban rule. That is not a record you can run on. It's a record you have to run away from.
All right.
All right. Well, mine is looking at the intersection of sports, politics, and culture, and women more specifically. Women have decided that they will take no more. These entities are saying, you have overplayed your hand, you've taken away our rights, and we will systematically come back and say, not on my watch. And I look at Vice President Harris as she attempts to win this race, which looks very good for her. And I look at women athletics, more specifically the WNBA. There's a resurgence of sports, and we're getting rid of these archaic archetypes that filter the way we view women in every aspect of the world. And we're saying, not on my watch, not today.
Snaps to that. Go ahead, Ashley.
Don't underestimate joy. It might not be a strategy, but it is a discipline. Joy is the backbone of so many movements in our history for liberation, for freedom, for opportunity, for possibility. People deserve joy. People deserve the opportunity to feel free and happy, and I think it will actually help the vice president.
All right, Scott.
Thousands of college students are going back to their campuses, and I want to give a shout out to the chancellor of Vanderbilt University, Daniel Diermeyer, who showed up and told all the new students, here's all the things we're not going to tolerate at Vanderbilt. We will not divest from Israel. We will not have provocative speakers, and we are not going to have support or condemnation of Israelis. So he took a strong hand at Vanderbilt to say no more of this nonsense, and every university president in the country ought to look to Vanderbilt for an example this fall.
That is very interesting. No provocative speakers. Tall order there, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for watching Newsnight State of the Race. Laura Coates Live starts right now.